Welcome to Back My Channel Coin Jar and Handling. In the quiet pocket of someone's old jacket, long forgotten in the passage of years, there can lie, wrapped in dust and mystery, tiny discs of copper that once bought a loaf of bread, a Sunday newspaper, a dime's worth of candy at the corner store. For most people, these are just pennies, the jingling background in everyday life. But to collectors, to dreamers, and to those who sense mystery in the ordinary, one tiny copper seed can become the key to a fortune so vast it feels mythical, like something from an old fairy tale about hidden treasure in the attic. Among these unassuming discs, the 1953 D. Lincoln Wheat penny stands out as a coin that seems simple at first glance, just a small copper circle stamped with the image of a former president. Yet it carries a weight far beyond its size. It carries history. It carries memory. It carries the quiet power of possibility. The notion that one coin, if found in rare condition, could be worth far more than its face value, perhaps even enough to change a life overnight. Picture the United States in 1953. The Second World War had ended less than a decade earlier, and the nation was settling into a new era of industrial growth and cultural transformation. By day, factories churned with production, families gathered around radios humming with broadcasts, and diners buzzed with conversation over coffee and pie. In pockets across the country, coins changed hands thousands of times each day, nickels for phone calls, dimes for stamps, quarters for jazz records, and pennies, shiny new pennies, for small purchases and piggy banks. Among these humble copper tokens was a Lincoln penny, a coin first introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln on the centennial of his birth. The design, Lincoln's solemn portrait on the front and two elegant sheaves of wheat on the back, is one of the most enduring and beloved in American coinage. If you held one of these coins in 1953, you might not have thought much of it. It was just everyday money, part of the rhythm of commerce. But the story of how that coin came into existence is part of a deeper American narrative, a narrative of remembrance, of honoring a leader who guided a nation through its most harrowing era of civil conflict, and of shaping an identity that would carry forward into the modern world. To mint those pennies, the United States struck vast quantities of copper planchets, little metal blanks, and pressed them with dies bearing Lincoln's image and the year of issue. One of the facilities that made these coins was the Denver Mint, which stamped its coins with a tiny D beneath the date to mark their origin. But here's where the magic begins. While millions of these pennies were struck and entered circulation, most of them did exactly what they were meant to do. They were spent. They jangled in pockets, slid into cash registers, collected in jars, and eventually faded in appearance as time wore down their surfaces. Most of these pennies never returned collectors. They simply lived out their beginnings as money in motion. Yet every so often, a small handful were set aside, saved, tucked away, forgotten, and thus began a different story for those rare survivors, a story of preservation, rarity, and the allure of coins that escaped the wiping hand of time. For most Lincoln Wheat pennies, including the 1953 D, condition is everything. A penny that has been heavily circulated, scratched, bent, dulled by decades of pocket life. Typically has modest value, perhaps only a few cents or dollars to a collector who appreciates history, but sees no rarity in its condition. But a penny that has survived in exceptional condition, its surface is still sharp, its luster intact, its details crisp and bright, can be a breathtaking find. These are the coins that make collectors gasp when they slide them under magnification. Pennies that almost look as though they were frozen in time the moment they left the press at the Denver Mint. The dream of discovering one of those rare high-condition pennies is what keeps collectors scanning old change jars, rummaging through inherited coin boxes, and peering at dates with magnifying glasses. The legend is not simply that a 1953 D penny could be valuable. It's that it could be extraordinarily valuable if found in a truly remarkable state. Imagine holding a penny in your hand that still has crisp edges around the wheat stalks in the reverse, that shows Lincoln's cheek and beard in sharp relief, that carries a glow of original copper color, so vibrant, it seems to laugh at the decades of where most pennies endure. That is a kind of survivor that turns interest into obsession, the kind that makes phone calls between dealers at midnight, the kind that sells at auction to the highest bidder, because it is simply too rare and too beautiful to ignore. In the coin world, there is a kind of silent poetry to these discoveries. The ordinary object related to everyday life becomes a vessel of time, a witness to history. Scholars and collectors alike speak of coins as time capsules, preserving not just metal, but the story of the era in which they were minted. When you hold a 1953 D Lincoln wheat penny in remarkable condition, you are holding a piece of the early 1950s, a small fragment of post-war America, carrying the imprint of culture and commerce from a bygone chapter of history. Yet even among collectors, the idea that a single 1953 D penny could be worth millions or make someone a billionaire overnight belongs more to the realm of legend than to typical reality. Most high-grade 1953 D pennies that appear at auction command respectably high prices among collectors, but they do not ordinarily reach the stratospheric multi-million-dollar figures reserved for ultra-rare errors or coins with historically unique stories. Still, the dream persists, and it is this dream, founded in the possibility of rare survivals, unusual errors, and exceptional condition, that fuels the passion of those who hunt for old coins. Consider for a moment the story of a dusty old box in a grandparent's attic, a box filled with yellowed envelopes, faded bills, old photographs, and a handful of coins wrapped in tiny tissue paper squares. Most of these coins may bear dates like 1978, 1968, or 1949, familiar and unremarkable. But deep in the folds, you find a small copper penny with the date 1953 and the faint letter D under it. You brush off decades of grime and notice something strange. This penny, unlike the others, doesn't show years of wear. Its surfaces look surprisingly crisp. Its fields retain a sheen that seems impossible for a coin of its age. You lean in closer, heart pounding, imagining the journey this penny must have taken next up. The 1957 D. Lincoln wheat penny stands as a piece of quiet legend, an ordinary coin with extraordinary potential. This small copper disc, struck at the Denver Mint more than 6 decades ago, has captivated collectors and dreamers alike with the idea that a coin found in a drawer or jar, even in a dirty, worn condition, could one day be recognized as something exceptionally valuable, perhaps even life-changingly rare. To understand why this small penny can stir such fevered fascination, we must step back into the world of the 1950s. The United States was in a nation of popcorn parlors, drive-in theaters, gleaming chrome automobiles, and soda fountains where school children dropped pennies for gum and comic books. It was the era of post-war optimism, families growing, cities expanding, and culture shifting into new rhythms of music, television, and everyday life. In that world, pennies were everywhere, jangling in pockets, dropped on sidewalks, spent for ice cream cones on hot summer afternoons, and collected by children who dreamed of treasure with every coin they found in a fountain. The Lincoln wheat penny itself is an iconic piece of American coinage. Introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it became an enduring symbol of American currency. Lincoln's dignified profile on the obverse, and 2 elegant stalks of wheat framing the denomination on the reverse. For nearly 50 years, these pennies were struck, circulated, saved, spent, lost, and rediscovered countless times. Each one carries a trace of the era in which it was minted, a whisper of the past. In 1957, this quiet piece of copper was produced in vast numbers by several mints, including the Denver Mint, the one responsible for coins marked with the tiny letter D beneath the date. To the casual spender in 1957, seeing that small d meant nothing more than a variation of origin, it was just another penny. But to the collector, every mint mark tells a story of production, of supply and demand, and how many coins may have survived the passage of time in neat, album-worthy condition. Most of the 1957 D. Lincoln wheat pennies that were released into circulation did exactly what they were meant to do. They bought stamps, candy bars, shoelaces, and pocketfuls of memories. Over the decades, they endured hand-to-hand commerce, rubbing against other coins, losing shine, collecting scratches, and gathering the soft patina of circulation wear. To the average eye, most of these pennies today look familiar. Their details soften with age, the rich copper dull to brown, their surfaces marked by the long journey of everyday use. But then there are the exceptions. A rare handful of these pennies escaped the harsh grind of circulation. Some were tucked away by coin collectors, some saved unknowingly in old wallets or boxes, others forgotten in albums for decades. These rare survivors, pennies that remain crisp and detailed, with sharp images, well-defined lettering, original copper tones, and minimal wear, occupy a world far above that of the common circulated coin. To a collector, these survivors are beautiful. They are remnants of pristine mint days, fragments of history untouched by the wear that flattened the vast majority of coins. In the numismatic community, the passionate world of coin collectors, condition is everything. A coin worn smooth by decades of pocket life is one thing. A coin that retains the sharpness of its original design is quite another. When a coin shows nearly all of its original detail, collectors call it uncirculated or mint state, and such pieces can be significantly more valuable than their circulated counterparts. For the 1957 D. Lincoln wheat penny, the vast majority seen today are worn and modest in collectible value. Yet from time to time, exceptionally preserved specimens emerge, coins that seem to carry the energy of the moment they were struck more than 50 years ago. These are the coins that cause experienced collectors' eyes to widen with excitement. Imagine a box of old coins bought at a garage sale for a few dollars. Inside, among the familiar figures of Jefferson nickels and Roosevelt dimes, there glints a copper penny you've never noticed before. Slowly, you wipe away the years of grime and see the date, 1957. Below it, barely visible but unmistakable, the D mint mark. Initially, it's easy to think it's just another penny until you hold it to the light and notice something remarkable. The penny's details are still sharp. The rim is strong. The wheat stalks on the reverse are clearly defined. Lincoln's cheek and jawline still show texture. It suddenly feels less like a spent coin and more like a time-sealed relic. This, a coin that survived decades of neglect yet remains astonishingly crisp, is the kind that makes collectors leap to attention. In the world of coin collecting, experienced numismatists use magnification and professional grading criteria to assess a coin's condition. They examine the shine or luster of the metal, the presence or absence of wear on high points, and the sharpness of design details. Coins deemed to be in high, uncirculated grades are far rarer than worn examples. And when such coins appear at auction or in private sales, their values can be surprisingly strong, far beyond what their face value might ever suggest. But the true mythic allure surrounding coins like the 1957 D. Lincoln wheat penny does not come only from grading and condition. It comes from stories whispered in coin shops, shared in weekly auctions, passed down among collectors, of rare uncirculated specimens that have brought astonishing prices because they seem to defy the fate that claimed their brethren. These stories fuel the curiosity of both serious collectors and everyday people who sift through old change jars and inherited coin collections, wondering if they might hold a hidden remnant of astonishing value. Over the years, coins with similar pedigree, survivors in extraordinary condition, have sold for five-figure sums at respected auctions. These aren't claims made to inflate hopes, but documented examples where collectors have been willing to pay premium prices for coins that exhibit exceptional condition and rarity within a given series. In the case of the 1957 D penny, most coins do not reach those heights. But the idea, the possibility, that one could exist, and that one day someone might stumble over such a coin in a pile of forgotten pennies, is part of what makes this small copper circle so captivating. Coins like these are not just pieces of metal. They are fragments of time. They are connections to a world that once was. Pocket change carried by hands long gone, coins that slipped into history, unseen and uncelebrated until someone opened a jar, looked closely, and noticed something special. They are reminders that value is not always what it seems, and that the ordinary can sometimes conceal the extraordinary. At their heart, these narratives keep collectors and enthusiasts searching. They keep people excited about the humblest of coins because somewhere among them might be a survivor, a high-grade 1957 D penny with original surfaces and remarkable preservation. The moment someone realizes they hold such a coin is a moment of electric wonder. A heartbeat quickens, breath pauses, and the mind rushes with possibilities. Could this coin be worth more than its face value? Could it be exceptionally valuable? Could it be worth thousands? Tens of thousands? Could it even hold a story powerful enough to change? Next up, among these humble discs of copper, the 1944 no-mint mark Lincoln wheat penny is one of the coins that has captured the imagination of collectors and treasure hunters alike, not because every example is worth millions, but because a rare few survivors, especially in astonishing condition or with unusual traits, have the power to astonish the numismatic world and change fortunes overnight. To understand why this tiny brown coin has such allure, we must return to the mid-20th century, when this very penny was first stamped into existence. The year was 1944, a turbulent moment in history, with battles raging across continents, families waiting for letters from the front, and nations spirit-bound together by sacrifice and hope. In those days, coins were not mere metal discs. They were companions of daily life. Soldiers carried pennies in their pockets as tokens of home. Mothers placed pennies in children's hands to buy sweets from the corner store. Farmers dropped pennies into jarfuls over generations. These coins bore witness to everyday stories, ordinary moments woven into grand tapestry of history. The Lincoln wheat penny itself was introduced in 1909 to honor one of America's greatest presidents, Abraham Lincoln, on the centennial of his birth. The design, Lincoln's profile on the obverse, and two stylized wheat sheaves embracing the denomination on the reverse, became an enduring symbol of American coinage for 4 decades. By 1944, the Lincoln penny was more than just money. It was a familiar friend in every pocket and purse across the nation. But what makes the 1944 no-mint mark penny special, and in some cases deeply valuable, is not simply its date, but its survival and condition. Most pennies minted in 1944 were struck in massive numbers and entered everyday circulation. Over the decades, tens of millions changed hands, rubbing against other coins, picked up by shoes, lost in couch cushions, or melted down. Most suffered where scratches, discoloration, and the slow erasure of detail that only decades of use can bring. To the average eye, a 1944 penny today looks like a worn relic. Its copper surface muted, its details softened, its edges blurred by countless transactions. And yet, hidden among these millions of ordinary survivors are extraordinary rarities, coins that have somehow escaped the wear of decades. These coins appear almost arrested in time, as if the moment they were stamped at the mint has been suspended for all these years. Their surfaces remain smooth, their details crisp, and their luster, that shimmering glow of original metal untouched by abrasion, still faintly visible under careful light. These are the coins that make seasoned collectors gasp when they slide them under magnification, the coins that cause dealers to lean in and squint with interest, because in the world of numismatics, condition is everything, and a penny that looks almost uncirculated after more than 70 years is not just rare, it is remarkable. Imagine, for a moment, a dusty old attic chest handed down through generations. Inside, beneath moth-eaten cloth and yellowing paperwork, there lies a leather pouch tied with faded ribbon. You untie it and find a handful of coins that glint faintly in the dusty light. Washington quarters, Roosevelt dimes, Kennedy half-dollars, and there, among them, a copper disc that looks almost too bright to be real. The date is still clear, 1944. There is no mint mark, indicating this coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, it could be just another old penny. But something about its surface, a quiet brilliance, a lack of heavy wear, makes you pause. You wipe away decades of grime, bring the coin into sharper view, and suddenly it feels alive in your hand. Not just a piece of old metal, but a fragment of history worth examining closely. And this is where the magic begins. Because to a professional collector, this moment, the moment of wonder when you realize that a coin might be more than ordinary, is the moment that separates casual curiosity from lifelong obsession. Collectors study coins with a care that borders on affection. They examine every ridge, every hint of luster, every trace of wear. They compare these features against reference standards. They speak in hushed tones about grading, eye appeal, original surfaces, dye varieties, and mint errors. And once they see a coin that looks like it has a known heavy circulation, their interest is no longer casual. It is serious, focused, and in some cases, intense. For most 1944 no-mint mark pennies, their value today remains modest, sometimes just a few cents to a few dollars, because condition matters above all else. A penny that has lost its original detail and been worn smooth by decades of everyday use is simply not rare or remarkable enough to draw significant collector interest. But when a coin survives with astonishing preservation, with crisp details around Lincoln's jawline, with sharp lettering that hasn't been rubbed flat, with wheat stalks that still display their textured edges, collectors see something different. They see a survivor, a coin that has beaten the odds, a coin that speaks of the era not as a worn, everyday object, but as something closer to an artifact. The most coveted examples are those that appear almost uncirculated, coins that show nearly all original detail and have avoided the pitting, scratching, and dulling that time inflicts on most circulation coins. Some of these coins seem to glow when held to a bright light, as though they still carry an echo of the moment they were first struck. In the grading world, professionals apply rigorous, microscopic standards to evaluate such coins. They look for evidence of original luster, the absence of abrasive wear, and surfaces that have not been tampered with by cleaning or polishing. A coin that meets high grading standards can be classified as a high-grade uncirculated piece, and is often much more coveted than a worn example. It is in this domain that the legend of the 1944 Lincoln wheat penny becomes so compelling, because while most of these coins remain modest in value, there do exist rare examples in exceptional condition that have commanded strong attention from serious collectors. These are coins that appear almost as if they were struck yesterday. Crisp edges, vibrant detail, copper still warm in tone rather than dull or darkened by wear. And then there's a dream that keeps treasure hunters and hobbyists scanning old coin jars, inherited collections, and dusty rolls from Grandma's house. The dream that one of these pennies might be worth far more than anyone imagines. It is that dream that fuels countless searches through loose change, that keeps magnifying glasses in desk drawers, and that makes otherwise ordinary people lean in with curiosity the moment they see an old date in their hands. Could this coin be the one? The one that stands apart from the millions? The one that, if certified by a professional, could draw attention, bids, and prices far beyond the ordinary? Stories of rare penny finds are part of numismatic lore. There are tales of coins discovered in old albums or flea market lots that turned out to be gems, coins that survived in remarkable condition, sometimes with unusual dye traits or subtle misstrikes that added to their intrigue. When such coins appear at auction, professionals and collectors alike take notice. Phones ring in bidding rooms, paddles are raised, and sometimes the final hammer price climbs far above what most people would expect. Next up, the 1954 D. Lincoln wheat penny stands as a quiet legend in American coin lore, a coin that at first seems ordinary, but whose story, survival, and rare survivors have captivated collectors, dreamers, and anyone who has imagined finding treasure in the everyday. To understand why a small copper penny could be so alluring, we must travel back to a time when these coins were new, back to the year 1954, a moment in American history filled with post-war optimism, quiet cultural revolutions, and everyday life unfolding across neighborhoods and city streets. It was an era when soda fountains hummed with chatter, when families gathered around radios and early televisions, and when children saved pennies in jars, dreaming of comic books or candy treats. In that world, the Lincoln wheat penny was ubiquitous, a tiny token of daily commerce, passing from hand to hand without fanfare, yet bearing within its metal the gentle imprint of everyday life. The Lincoln wheat penny first appeared in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth, a design that quickly became one of the most enduring in U.S. coinage. On the front, Lincoln's portrait, solemn, determined, bearing the weight of history, greeted all who used these coins. On the back, two graceful stalks of wheat framed the denomination, giving the coin its familiar name. For decades, these pennies saw the world change. They witnessed the Great Depression, the Second World War, the dawn of jet travel, and eventually the dawn of the atomic age. By the time 1954 rolled around, the Lincoln wheat penny was not just money. It was a silent witness to generations of living history. The 1954 pennies were struck in massive quantities, including at the Denver Mint, denoted by the tiny letter D beneath the date. To everyday hands in 1954, that mint mark was of little consequence. It did not affect the coin's buying power, and most people paid it no mind as they used these pennies to pay for everyday goods. But to the discerning eye of the collector, every mint mark tells a story of production runs, of how many were struck, and hints about how many may have survived the decades that followed. The vast majority of 1954, D pennies entered circulation and began the long journey of wear and tear, jostling in pockets, rubbing against other coins, losing their shine and crispness with every exchange. Most pennies from that year did exactly what cash was meant to do. They were spent until they faded into background of everyday economic life. They paid for shoe shines and bus rides, double-minted at top counters, and slowly bore the soft scars of years of use. To many people today, a 1954 D penny looks like a brown, tarnished piece of old metal, its once bright surfaces dulled by decades of contact with grit, paper bills, pocket lint, and the ceaseless motion of ordinary life. But among these millions of ordinary survivors, there are, sometimes, rare exceptions, coins that seem to defy time itself. These rare survivors are pennies that somehow escape the usual gauntlet of circulation, not worn smooth, not nicked and scarred, not pressed against kettles or dragged under carpets. Some were tucked away soon after they were minted, perhaps in a coin album, perhaps in a jar of savings, perhaps in an envelope forgotten in the back of a drawer, and there they lay untouched as the years slipped by. These coins did not travel from pocket to register. They did not tumble in change trays or lose detail from decades of use. Instead, they retained the sharpness of their original strike, the crispness of Lincoln's features, the balanced relief of the wheat stalks, and a surface glow that whispers of mint days long lost. To a collector, coins like these are breathtaking. They are reminders that time leaves not only decay, but also rare preservation. Collectors know that condition is everything. A coin that looks worn tells one story, but coin that looks nearly as new today as on the day it was struck is a time capsule. These high-grade survivors, coins that have retained nearly all their original detail and luster, are the ones that draw serious interest, deep curiosity, and sometimes astonishing prices at auction. Imagine for a moment someone exploring their grandparents' old house. Perhaps they are sorting through boxes of photographs, letters, and yellowed memorabilia when they come upon a dusty jar full of coins. The jar rattles when they shake it, and they begin pulling out coins one by one. Quarters, nickels, dimes, copper pennies with dates from the 1930s and 1940s. And then there it is, tucked between a 1941 quarter and an old Buffalo nickel, a small, coppery disc with the date 1954 stamped clearly on its face, and beneath it, the faint but unmistakable letter D. It looks old, very old, and yet something about it seems alive. Maybe it's the way the light catches Lincoln's profile, or the surprising clarity of the wheat stalks on the reverse. Something about it doesn't feel worn. It feels preserved. A heartbeat quickens. A dream stirs. Could this be one of those rare survivors? For a coin enthusiast, that moment, the moment of possibility, is electric. It's the point where curiosity becomes obsession, where value becomes tangible, where history becomes intimate. Because collectors understand that while most 1954 D pennies are common and modest in value, a truly excellent specimen, one with sharp detail and minimal signs of wear, can be far more valuable than its simple face suggests. To them, such coins are prized objects, not for their monetary worth alone, but for their connection to time, to survival, and to the stories they carry. In the professional numismatic world, coins are judged by rigorous standards. Experts use magnification, lighting, and decades of reference experience to grade coins based on factors like luster, strike quality, color, and the presence or absence of wear. A high-grade coin, especially one labeled uncirculated or mint state, is one that retains most of its original surfaces and shows little or no evidence of having been spent in everyday commerce. These coins are rare precisely because most pennies were spent. Few escape the friction and impact of decades in circulation. That rarity is what drives values. When a coin's survival has been excellent, not merely okay or slightly worn, but exceptionally preserved, collectors start to take notice. They reach for catalogs. They compare with reference plates. They consider past auction results, and suddenly that little copper disc becomes more than curious. It becomes coveted. When such coins are offered at major auctions, serious collectors tune in. Bidding can be fierce, and prices can climb far above what ordinary miniatures might suggest. For some coins, especially those with unique characteristics or unusual appeal, prices have reached astonishing levels. Now, it is true that most 1954 Lincoln wheat pennies you find in everyday change are worth only a few cents or at best a couple of dollars to collectors. A worn, dull, dirty penny with flattened wheat stalks and soft lettering is fascinating for its age, but not extraordinary in the eyes of the market. Dirt, scratches, corrosion, and heavywear do not add value. They diminish it. But when a penny emerges that has retained sharp detail, bold imagery, and surfaces that seem to glow with original life, hope leaps. Collectors begin to whisper. They take closer looks. They summon magnifiers and compare details with known premium examples. And sometimes, just sometimes, those whispers turn eye